Hello, everybody, and welcome to our January 2026 astrology forecast. As always, I'm delighted to be joined by our brilliant faculty member, Celeste Brooks. So thank you so much for coming back on the show. And how are you doing today?
I am doing fabulous, Callum. I'm really looking forward to discussing this with you and getting your insights on this big month ahead.
Absolutely. I'm very excited to bring in the new year with you. Okay, so before we get into the details of each week, Celeste, what are your thoughts for the new year as an overview?
Well, we start the new year under a Sagittarius lunation. So on December 19th, there was a Sagittarius new moon at 28 degrees of Sagittarius. And we're having one of the big things we've been seeing is a lot of new moons at that 28th degree, which will continue until March, I believe, is the last one. So there's like 6 months where that same degree is excited in different signs. And for the United States, it has a lot of meaning because our Pluto is at 27 degrees of Capricorn. So they're different astrological and geometric relationships. But what Pluto does is it burns things down to the studs in order to be rebuilt. And we really see this in the United States. And Pluto has to do with power dynamics, Capricorn, the government in the Sibley chart, which most people use as a natal chart for the US. It's the second house, which rules values and resources. And there are these big monumental changes that are happening with the current administration trying to bring the country back to the 1950s. And we see this through the legislation, through the images, the propaganda, and everything. And the fight for freedom continues for people who are not actually interested in that kind of thing. Continues this power struggle. And Sagittarius, the United States is a Sagittarius rising. So this new moon is a new start for the country's image and people. And we will be seeing a lot of things. One of the big things that is supposed to happen is the Epstein files. More and more and more is going to be released, shedding a light on the rich and powerful and the elites. As we come into this year, there's also a lot of intensity before we even get here. So these last 2 weeks, there will have been a lot of information released. The United States is on the verge of war with Venezuela that was first being promoted as a drug war. Now, I'm in my 50s. I never heard once before this last year that Venezuela was a problem in terms of sending drugs to the country. We more think about Colombia or Mexico being the sources of the drug trade. But apparently, this has been the cover story. But then the president said that America wants the oil and land rights from that used to be allowed American companies before there was changes in the Venezuelan governments. So here we are back to the past, trying to be imperialistic and take resources by force from another country. There was a ship when Mercury and Sagittarius made a hammer of Thor in the sky on the 17th of, it was around the 16th or 17th of December. So Mercury and Sagittarius on a world point, it was about 7.5 degrees of Sagittarius. On one side, a sesqui-square to Chiron in Aries. On the other side, Jupiter in Cancer, both at about 22.5 degrees. So those are for on cardinal signs, those are also world points. That square at the base, and what Thor did, it would pick up the hammer and knock the top off of mountains. So Jupiter in Cancer, nationalistic, sending ships, an armada to to that area, and then Chiron in Aries, this threat of war and action in order to take their resources. And that's the big theme we've been seeing as we're recording this, getting ready for the new year. So I'll stop there before I stop. We're moving from a 9-year, 2025 is a 9-year, symbolically a lot of endings. And we've seen it as Saturn and Neptune are moving together. Aries, then Pisces, then Aries, then back to Pisces as we're exiting the years. Structures coming down and dissolving, all sorts of things. We just had in Brazil, there was this bad storm in an area that had a Statue of Liberty replica that crashed to the ground. That feels very symbolic of what we're experiencing in Washington State. There's levees, a levee broke and towns are being flooded. There's just masses of water, propaganda, all these Piscean themes as we're ending this year. And it's a lot for people to be experiencing. But 2026 is a year of the one. So after the ends, after the collapse, there's new start. So that's where we are as we're ending 2025.
Such great points, Celeste, and so much turbulence going on. And tying in what you're saying, my overview for January and going into the new year is that there are no more rules anymore. So we might as well create our own realities. And one of the reasons I say this is through the month, we're going to have the majority of planets going through Capricorn and Aquarius, all disposited by that Saturn in Pisces, moving towards its conjunction with Neptune. Now, one of the main manifestations that can happen with this is Neptune can dissolve Saturn's sense of reality. Now, one of my favorite quotes is Rick Levine quoting Robert Hand, and he said, "Astrologers used to think that Saturn was reality and that Neptune was illusion. But what we're seeing now is that Neptune is reality and Saturn is the illusion that we had a reality at all." And I think that speaks to what you're saying and what's happening all around the world, particularly with governments in the West, where they're not following the rules anymore. So why the hell should we? They're already breaking the social contracts with the people. We're seeing the extreme cost of living crisis. And it's getting to a point where the people might start to revolt. And if we step back a little bit further, we have, as you've mentioned, that Pluto in Aquarius, which historically has seen the French and the American revolutions. But this is going to be compounded with the Neptune-Saturn conjunction, which historically has seen the downfall of the ruling class. I think most notably you see this in the 1917 Russian Revolution, where people were fed up. And it's just tying into this sense of people getting tired. I know the exact conjunction of Neptune-Saturn doesn't become exact until February, but we're starting to get this revolutionary sense of fervor all around the world. It's going to go through the beginning of this year into February, and for me, all the way through 2026 for many years to come, as we're starting to build those energies of that people have just had enough. The people, the governments aren't following the rules, and I think we're going to get to a crunch. And in my view, it's not a matter of if populations start to rise up, it's a matter of when. So to your point, Celeste, we're in very, very turbulent times with wars that might be starting again. So we're going to have to see where we're going.
Absolutely. Yeah, there is so much intensity. And I love that quote, how you phrased it. We're realizing Neptune is the reality. We're seeing behind the curtain, and it's very destabilizing for a lot of people. It's tough. And in the United States, healthcare premiums are going to skyrocket for people. This like just obscene hoarding of wealth by the elites is going to be their downfall.
And it's not sustainable. So you're absolutely right, Celeste. Absolutely. Okay, so doing an overview, let's go into the details of each week. So Celeste, what are your thoughts for the first week of January?
Yeah, so it's really interesting. I want people to not to be scared, but to be really aware there's a lot of volatile energy as we approach the new year. So on the 30th, we have there is a gibbous moon in Taurus at 24 degrees, and that is conjunct the fixed star Algol, and Uranus is very close to there. And then the moon will meet Uranus. Now, Algol is known for it's a red blinking star. It's known to coordinate or correspond with tragedies. It has associations with the Medusa myth and the Lilith myth. So it's the beheading star. So really be mindful about if you're imbibing to try to be mindful about overdoing it, because you can kind of behead your own self with what you're saying, what you're doing, as well as give people who are acting a little bit wild a wide berth. And yeah, now this also could be like bad storms with Neptune moving through the last degree of Pisces and Saturn catching up to it. But keep that in mind. On December 31st, New Year's Eve, the moon is in Gemini, reporting into Mercury and Sagittarius in the sign of its detriment. And Mercury is approaching a square with Neptune and Pisces. They're both at the 29th degree of crisis and decay. People can be extremely out of control on New Year's Eve, just setting off fireworks left, right, and center, getting so out of their minds that, this could be a very dangerous situation. Moon in Gemini, cars, people traveling by car, probably higher than typical. There'll be drunk driving arrests and accidents. So just be very mindful of your safety. And Mercury enters Capricorn on the 1st. And you go from people are going to be waking up after all this revelry, wishing they had not acted so wild. This is hangover city with Chiron stationing direct in Aries, and it's actually on a world point, 22 and a half degrees of Aries. So there will be people trying to, it happens all the time, and there have been people already arrested, like some people in Germany trying to destroy, cause terrorist actions at a Christmas market. This Turtle Island group in Southern California were planning some big things for New Year's Eve, trying to hurt people. So just be very mindful of your safety and be mindful of how much you're imbibing if you are, because there can be Chiron in Aries is like the headache of the century. And when a planet stations, it intensifies the energy, and Aries rules the head. And yeah, anything you want to say about New Year's Eve, New Year's Day?
Those are such great points, Celeste, because you mentioned this last year for the last New Year's Eve where we had some issues. I think it might have been a Mars connection, if I remember correctly, but you were spot on. And there was so much violence going on last New Year's Eve that it was just wild. So I totally agree with you, especially here. This will be into the early hours, but the Mercury in detriment, square Neptune, it's not a clear picture. And if you overdo it with the drinking and the partying, then it can really, you end up, it's in that delusional state where you've just had too much. So I would certainly say, especially with the planet starting to move into Capricorn, being a bit more sensible is the key word here. But certainly as we build into this, and with the Chiron station direct, the wounded healer, this could very well have a potential, as you said, with Aries in the head, for a very hangovery couple of days. So certainly I agree with you, Celeste, is just to be a bit more restrained in your partying as we get to this point.
Yeah, definitely. And the light is growing. And then we have this full moon at 13 degrees of Cancer on the 3rd, which is a Saturday. I would still be very aware of your surroundings and your safety, because it's conjunct the fixed star Sirius, which is the brightest star besides the sun. And it's called the Shining One and the Scorcher. So this is going to be very interesting because the United States sun is at 13 degrees of Cancer. So this full moon is on our sun, our identity. The sun rules leaders. It's a leader archetype. So it's the sun in Capricorn will be opposite the moon, and the sun of the natal chart in Cancer. So full moons, people are generally a little bit, there's tension between the people, the moon, and the leader, the sun. And what is the government doing around this time? As Mercury in Capricorn, there have been another announcement from the government that is really irritating people. It'll be really interesting to see what happens during this full moon, because it's then we have this really interesting pattern. So Venus, the sun, and Mars are all in a line in like 12 to 14 degrees of Capricorn, moving together, getting ready to do these conjunctions that you see. Venus goes Cazimi on the 16th, which is beautiful. Like Venus has a rebirth, and you could really be thinking about Venus. What resources are, what relationships, what are you willing to commit to in order to achieve your goals? And your legacy feels very Capricornian. And when Venus is conjunct the sun, you get to ask the sovereign for a favor. So this could be like at work. You may want to ask your boss, like, what do I need to do to get the best raise possible? That could be something you're asking. And then Venus is conjunct Mars. And this confuse your desires with your actions and really give you focus, determination, and drive to hit the ground running this year. Last year, Mars was retrograde and opposite Pluto. It was just, the energy was just like, all over the place. This year, you can really get going with determination and purpose out of the gate. So really pay attention to, and I would really write down your goals around this time for what you want to achieve. And then the sun conjunct Mars. Maybe you are talking to your boss and they're saying, okay, you can have this project, where this can give you a chance to show your energy, your drive, and your commitment. Mars is exalted in Capricorn, lifted up with a special seat at the table. Yeah, what do you want to be doing to achieve your goals? And like with Venus opposite Jupiter retrograde, Jupiter is a benefic, it's a benefactor. Maybe you need a mentor to help you achieve what you want to achieve. Yeah, and with all these oppositions to Jupiter, this could be how I'm kind of looking at this. But it's very interesting. The new director of MI6 in England gave a talk this week. We're talking, but this is mid-December, about how we're moving between peace and war. Venus rules peace, Mars rules war. This could be where we see the action really heat up in Venezuela or somewhere else around the world. This is really energy of conflict is heating up as well as we move through this time. What do you want to point out about this week,
I
Kelly?
love those. I love those points, Celeste. Particularly your keywords of determination and just the amount of energy that's going to be in this week. So my overview for week one is the sense, I would just say, get it done. We have all of the planets moving direct, apart from Uranus and Jupiter. And in Cardinal Earth, this is a great week to initiate any projects either that you have at home or at work. And to reinforce this energy, we have an exalted Mars, which is going to give us the stamina and the strength to push on with our projects. And on top of that, as you've mentioned, we've got the energy building up for the full moon. So this is going to give us more energy in the sky. In the sign of Cancer, I almost have the sense of, if you've got any projects going on at home, it's kind of like shoring up the castle. You've got the strength of the cardinal earth energy along with the water, more kin and homely energy. So if you've got any projects going on at home, this is a great time to shore up the castle. And to your point, January 6th, we've got Venus Cazimi. This strengthens this Venus. So this might be a nice day or two to either, I know it falls in the middle of the week, maybe you go out for a nice meal with co-workers, or it might influence your interpersonal relationships in a beneficial way. This is Venus, the lesser benefic. And I think even though that Venus becomes Cazimi and eventually opposes Jupiter, sometimes with the Venus opposite Jupiter, you almost get the sense of overindulgence or overspending. However, with the Venus in Capricorn, and I'm speaking as a Venus in Capricorn native, it has a bit more restraint. It's a Saturn ruled sign. It's not as ostentatious as maybe other signs. So I don't have much of a feel of people going overboard too much with a Venus in Capricorn, keeping things steady, keeping things quite restrained. But this is going to be a nice couple of days to spend some time with your partners. Now, is this going to be flavored with the Venus conjunct Mars? That's going to add a bit of spice to your interpersonal relationships. So maybe watch out for those days, but maybe use some of that energy to go off with a partner and do something energetic. Maybe you go jogging together for a new year, new you exercise regime, things of this nature where we can start using these planets in a more positive way. And yeah, we do have a lot of these Capricorn planets bouncing off and getting magnified by the retrograde Jupiter. So all that's going to do is magnify these planets, whether it's the Venus, whether it's the Sun or the Mars. I would say with the Mars opposite Jupiter, just be careful not to overextend yourself. Yes, that Mars is exalted and has a lot of power, but it doesn't really like the Cancerian energy because it has its fall in Cancer. So just be mindful if you do have many projects on the go that around January 10th, you don't overextend yourself.
And I also think this is, a lot of times people hit the ground running in January with the gym, and just be mindful that you don't want to start, go from a 10-pound dumbbell to a 150-pound one, because this could be, especially on the 10th, people overexerting themselves and having some kind of injury. So pace yourself with this start of the year. But think about all of the Capricorn themes: the governments, big business, the elderly. See what you're seeing in the collective about these topics. Structures. I think there's going to be big talk about structures around this week. Maybe some infrastructure planning or infrastructure failing with the deluges of water kind of thing. So anything you can do around your house, if you get any leaks, fix them ASAP, because we could have an extremely rainy January in a lot of the world.
Wonderful advice. Absolutely. Okay, Celeste, into week 2. What are your thoughts?
So when I saw this, Venus goes through these squares with Chiron and Aries. And Chiron is the wounded healer. Aries rules the self, the head, and Chiron hurts and then it heals. So it can feel very intense when you feel like the bit of the hurt, but it's for our higher good to work if you work through it and don't push away the wound. So there may be conversations that are coming up in relationships with Venus and Capricorn, square Chiron and Aries. Just watch out for getting too heated. And then the Sun and then Mars. Well, Jeffrey Epstein is a Capricorn rising, and it's so interesting. The astrology of the moment. He got this birthday book for his 50th birthday. That's a third house year. The third house communication, a birthday book is it's a perfect gift. And 2025, if he had lived, he would have been 72. Our charts live on after we die. And 72, a first house year. So his birth certificate was in the birthday book, which gave us the ability to cast his chart and know his ascendant is in Capricorn. And he has Mercury at 21 degrees of Capricorn in his first house. So Venus, the Sun, and Mars are going to be conjunct his Mercury, square Chiron in Aries. So we could think about this when you're seeing all this information released from Congress. There may be conversations or whatever you call it, like hearings and things going on. Hopefully some people will have to be held accountable and receive consequences for what they did to these girls. It's a really great time. Some people, I think, will be deciding that, for this year, I want to get some therapy in order to work through some of my personal issues and obstacles about myself. And I think this could be a great time to do that as well, because with Mercury opposite Jupiter, this could be you literally picking up the phone and calling for some help and a plan, Capricorn, in order to deal with some emotional things. From a therapist can be a Jupiter type figure who can help you work through some issues. And yeah, with the Venus sextile Saturn, to help you learn how to, Saturn in Pisces, manage your emotional responses better in your relationships. Marriage counseling can be a great thing to do, and make some permanent changes for the higher good with Venus sextile Uranus that you decide and you commit to for that.
Wonderful, wonderful advice, Celeste. And speaking about Chiron, as you've mentioned, this is really a week where we have to look at our own wounds, our own vulnerabilities, both on an individual and collective level. As we see here, we've got the Venus square Chiron, the Sun, the Mars, and the Mercury all of this week. So if we take them one by one, with a Venus square Chiron, yes, it doesn't last too long, but we might have to ask ourselves from the previous years, what wounds do we have in relationships, and are some relationships worth saving, or some of them, especially after the holidays, do you get to a point where you maybe have to just maybe move on and disconnect from certain people in your lives? When we get to the Sun, we're talking about our identity and our sense of self. So there may be some wounds that come up for you in terms of, are people questioning your identity or questioning how you present yourself in the world? And along with Mars, this could be in how we take action in our lives. Are people questioning what you want out of life or what you want to do or press forward with? This is the Mars squaring up against Chiron, really asking you the question of what you're putting your energy into. Is it worth it? That's really a question you have to ask yourself this week. And then we're compounded by all of this Capricorn energy squaring Chiron again with Mercury. And here we might just have to be careful around January 15th of not only what we say to ourselves, but what we say to others. Because what might be received by other people might be wounding. Your words might hurt other people. And conversely, you might be involved in a situation, whether it's with bosses or co-workers, where their words hurt and affect you. Maybe they're questioning how you think or how you plan. Things of this mercurial nature. Really is just a week where we have to step back and examine some of our wounds and vulnerabilities and to work through some of those issues. But on the positive sense, all astrology is asking us to do is to ask those important questions and to evolve and to move forward in life.
Absolutely. Yes. Mercury square Chiron, mind your P's and Q's. And if you do say something where you wish you had it, as Venus and Capricorn sextiles Neptune and Pisces at that 29th degree of both signs of crisis and decay, saying I'm sorry after to make amends to a relationship after something, can be really helpful. Or it can be like deciding, like you said, Callum, this relationship is just over. And recognizing that, especially if somebody got out of control on New Year's Eve, it might be like, okay, we need to take a break. Yeah. And the Sun sextile Saturn, what are you committed to? There's an opportunity to really to continue to have some discipline. As Venus moves into Aquarius, if you've been really focused and staying home, saving your money, all of these kinds of things for the first couple of weeks of the year, you may get ready when Venus moves from Capricorn, which is more serious, grounded, disciplined, into Aquarius, an air sign. Air signs communicate and connect. You may want to get back out there and socialize, have some people come over for a party, go out to a restaurant, but can you maintain some of that discipline so that you don't go crazy eating and drinking and all that kind of stuff when you go out? at this time. So it'll be really interesting. Notice what you desire and how your relationships are the interaction with your friends, your loved ones, and business partners, all those Venusian type of relationships. As we move from Capricorn into Aquarius, now you're looking into the future. You're wanting to be more social, and yeah, and the energy can lighten a bit. But Mercury conjunct Mars, this can be like talking to your peers or a group of people, coming up with some plans in order to take actions. Mercury Mars can be focused, can be strategic, and disciplined in the actions you are going to take. Now, this can also be argumentative. Mercury can destabilize and argue, and it takes on the nature of what it's talking to. So when it's talking to Mars, but Mars is exalted, so you can use this for a really high purpose executive action, but just be mindful. People can get, you may turn on the TV and see people in government mixing it up, fighting, like throwing hands, all kinds of nonsense, or in a business meeting. But yeah, you don't have, doesn't have to be that. It can be really, really positive.
Such a great point about the shadow side and the possible positive manifestations of that Mercury, because it might not be an easy week to keep our mouths shut. I know we talked about the Mercury square Chiron, where we have to be careful with our words, but the day before we've got the Mercury opposite Jupiter. That's going to magnify that Mercury. And as you pointed out, we've got the Mercury conjunct Mars, which can be very penetrating words. So this might be easier said than done when it comes to Mercury and reining ourselves in. I think the one thing that helps us here is that we have a Mercury in Capricorn. So it's an inward polarity along with Jupiter. So the inward polarity signs are a bit less flamboyant in terms of how they project their voices. And in the collective, with this Mercury in Capricorn, it might just help us out a bit by being a bit more of an inward polarity and a bit more sensible. But that's my view.
Yes, and Mercury Mars, as we're approaching that, what executive actions are we going to be hearing about? Oh my gosh, I'm sure there's going to be something. And Sun trine Uranus feels like a reversal of some sort. So we will be seeing what reversals are coming up. That yeah, it's going to be some interesting stuff as there's actions to continue to turn back the clock. But then we have this new moon in Capricorn. And again, we're at this 28th degree. So it's conjunct the Pluto of the United States. So what is being seeded, and I think it's by the government. I think there's a lot about values. I saw recently there's things about the employment agencies are encouraging white men to file cases if they feel like they have been discriminated against at work in order to receive some financial rewards. So we'll see how that plays out through January, and if there's something around that related to this new moon. Yeah, Mercury. And maybe you'll see billboards popping up about this sort of thing. Mercury sextile Saturn in Pisces and trine Uranus retrograde in Taurus. Trying to get, if you can feel like you can prove you were denied a job because of you're a white male, you can contact a legal representative, which feels like that could also be Mercury Capricorn for the government. So it'll be interesting to see what is announced, what is seeded this new moon, especially as the sun enters the sign of Aquarius and Aquarius season begins. And this Jeffrey Epstein is an Aquarius sun at the 0 degree, so this can be shedding some more light on things related to this story. But I'm really interested to see how this Venus conjunct Pluto in Aquarius shows up. Is there going to be some kind of announcement about cryptocurrency or making some changes around reserves or things like that around this time. There can be big financial news seeded, and we shall see how this shows up. But there's a lot going on January 19th that feels somewhat destabilizing. Saturn is direct and it's sextile Uranus retrograde. So Saturn in Pisces, Uranus retrograde in Taurus. The sextile, the last time they were together was right around when all the tariffs came out. So there could be some big news about that. The courts are considering making the government reverse the tariffs because the executive branch is not in control of the purse. That's Congress's job. So we'll see what happens with that. But just be mindful. This is a really intense energy. Mars, even though it's a sextile with Saturn, Mars and Saturn, whenever they talk, conflict that has serious consequences, conflict Mars that has serious consequences can be an issue. This feels like very combative kind of energy, and be mindful of what you are saying because things may come out of people's mouths. Mercury sextile Neptune, that might have been best kept to oneself. Capricorn and Mercury will be at that 29th degree, holding all the energy of Capricorn. Capricorn can be very serious, and at his shadow side can be very cruel, unforgiving, unyielding, and intense. And then Mercury enters Aquarius, and there can be that's a yang sign, and people can be a little bit. There can be some things can come flying out of people's mouths. And Mercury meets the sun, and that could be somebody talking to their boss on the side of their mouth. Is what I'm getting with this as it goes through the sun and then meets Pluto. This is intense energy. So really watch what you're thinking, watch what you're saying. This can be, Aquarius can be like the revolutionary, the renegade. We may be seeing people in the streets apoplectic about what is going on and what decisions have been made.
This is why I love doing this with you, Celeste, because you're sparking so many ideas in my mind. And going back to what you were talking about with trade, if we go back to the solar return of the United States, if you look at that chart, you have Mercury trade in the seventh house of foreign relations in a difficult T-square with the Pluto in opposition to the Pluto, and a T-square with the moon in Scorpio. Now, the moon is not traditionally great in Scorpio. In that solar return, a tight T-square. This might be that turning up again of that Mercury conjunct Pluto. And as you've talked about with these tariffs, I think at some point the Supreme Court is going to look at this. But when we go back to the solar return, you see that theme of trade. The people are pissed off about it, the tariffs, how much we're having to spend, and the sense that we're all paying through the nose and more, where the whole point was to lower costs. And of course, this cost of living crisis is getting worse and worse. So I think that's such a great point about the mundane sense and this Mercury-Pluto connections, the Mercury-Sun, so much going on for this week. I think on a more individual level, this is quite a busy week. We have a shift here from a lot of the planets going from cardinal Earth into fixed air. So we have that shift of element. And what's quite interesting here, it almost gives me the flavor of a very special time in 1962 when you had a hardcore stellium in Aquarius. And some of the things that we can be talking about to Celeste's point is we might have some of this humanitarian quality here as well. So Celeste, you're talking about maybe people out on the street, people have had enough. Maybe we see another uprising of protests, especially with the Mercury conjunct the Sun. That might be speaking to leadership in countries all around the world, not just the United States. The Mercury conjunct Pluto, very intense, maybe more information about the Epstein stuff, but maybe more protesting about the current regime. all of these different energies going on. And this is building up again the bigger picture for 2026. And especially as we get into a fire horse year in the Chinese astrology, it's going to be a very, very volatile time. So, my advice is just to strap in your seatbelt and do the best you can and practice self care as we go through this year.
Yes, there's a lot of intensity. And what are your goals? How can you, despite all the chaos that's going on around us, keep focused on the things that you really want to get done during the year? Really, I love using the moon cycles in order to do so, because that can be a really powerful way to break things up into bite-sized pieces. But with all this Aquarius energy, people are going to be thinking about the future technology. What is being announced with Mercury conjunct Pluto? And whatever it is, with Mars sextile Neptune, I feel like people could be really agitated about what's going on. Now, this Mars and Capricorn, sextile Neptune and Pisces, this can be a structure suddenly collapsing. This can be like a storm, and you see the houses floating away or things like that. So, as I said earlier, do not allow any leaks to persist, because it could be a big problem. And Mars enters Aquarius. There can be a group of people who feel like they are being attacked. The United States is putting all these countries on lists for people who cannot even come into the United States. There can be something more about this, and the Sun conjunct Pluto, or like new actions done by tech companies, or some kind of revelation. We get to see the Sun spotlights things behind the scenes, Pluto and Aquarius, what the powers that be are doing to try to spy on, manipulate, control large groups of people, can be something that's going on. Yeah. And Mars entering Aquarius, this can also be discussions around porn on devices as well. So we'll see how that shows up. But this is going to be very loud, this Mars in Aquarius at this time. Yeah. Absolutely. And maybe people will be taking action to, shut down technology, like go through everything. They keep turning on things that allow them to spy on everything you're doing and writing and saying in your DMs. And you have to go in and turn it off, rather than them asking you, can we turn it on? So this could be something people are getting madder about. Will people, really work to get their Congress people or parliaments to do something to stop this? It'll be interesting to see what shows up around this time. Is TikTok being bought? This never-ending story. Mercury conjunct Pluto. Could that be like finalizing the deal with TikTok? We'll see.
Okay, less going on for week 4. Celeste, what are your thoughts?
So Neptune re-enters Aries, and it's going to stay there for most of the next 14 years. So Neptune in Aries, I call that pop the balloon, because as Neptune goes through 29 degrees of Pisces, it is the pixie dust. And this is what we saw last year. The pixie dust, the Kool-Aid you've been drinking, it's like starts to, like, you spit it out. Now, people are not believing the propaganda they've been seeing, like with the president of the United States. The economy is A+++. After 1 million jobs have been lost. People can't afford their groceries. Some people are working 2-3 jobs just to make ends meet. They're exhausted. As Neptune enters Aries, what are we seeing? I see this as a mythic hero rising, but think about the pop the balloon energy. It's like the pixie dust is expired. People are mad as a hornet. This can be like on the waters, fighting on waters, fighting Aries on the seas, Neptune. And Mars is conjunct Pluto. So this, really pay attention what is going on. I would have all of your devices charged up before Mars meets Pluto in Aquarius, because this could be power outages. This could be just bad weather that leads to a power outage. And so know where your candles are, know where everything is as this is happening, or like an app, going down or something like that. So that can be something that's going on. But I'm really interested to see how this is going to, because Neptune enters Aries, reporting into that Mars conjunct Pluto, and that's good. That's flavoring the energy of this transit. Now, I love Mercury conjunct Venus, because this can be negotiations come to, and this could be the TikTok merger as well. Negotiations come to a close where both parties feel like they've gotten something. And think about what we're seeing in terms of that. Mercury negotiates, Venus tries to find harmony between the parties, and in Aquarius, it can be about technology, large groups. This as well can be people coming together to fight for humanitarian ideals, or to make statements about them. And they're passionate with Neptune in Aries. I just got Joan of Arc making a speech.
I absolutely love that, Celeste. And to your point, Neptune is going back into Aries for 14 years. We've had the preview. Now, this is going to be a mainstay as we get to January 26. And we'll get more into the details of how that might manifest to you when we get to each rising sign. But again, historically, Neptune in Aries has seen a lot of social upheavals. I talked before about the Russian Revolution in 1917. If we go further back, it was a part of the American Civil War. There's other conjunctions when we had the Neptune-Saturn conjunction, the fall of the Berlin Wall. So there's always a lot of social upheavals with Neptune in Aries. As Celeste is saying, it's a Mars-ruled sign. It's people taking action and not believing the BS anymore. Neptune is illusion, but when it's in Aries, people are like, it's not about the drugs in Venezuela. It's literally about the oil. And we're getting to a point now where a lot of these governments are just going, they're not even pretending like they did in 2003 with weapons of mass destruction. They're going, yeah, you know what? It's pretty much about the oil and land. They're not even hiding it anymore. Then not only that, we have the Mars conjunct Pluto. Now, this can be quite a destructive connection with these two planets. We've got Mars, aggression and action, Pluto, the underworld and destruction. Just be careful around this. This is the middle of the work week. On an individual level, I'll just be extra careful about being on the roads. If anyone is speeding around you or being a bit more erratic, just let them go ahead. Don't get involved. And maybe to a certain degree, avoid places where there's a lot of people. I mean, I don't want to say this, but it might manifest in a way with, violence in different parts of the world, maybe sudden violence or an act of terrorism, things of this nature. So just be very careful, not only on the day of January 27th, because as we know with transits, sometimes it can be the day leading up to it as the aspect is applying, and sometimes it's a day or two after the connections are made. So just a couple of days around that time, just to be a bit mindful of your surroundings. And if you can, I work at home, I might just not leave the house for a day or two at this point. But to Celeste's point, I do like the Mercury conjunct Venus. This is going to soften the flow somewhat, but it's still quite a turbulent week with the Neptune in Aries and Mars conjunct Pluto. Absolutely wonderful. Any last thoughts there, Celeste?
Yeah, I'm really interested to see how this Neptune in Aries shows up. And you made a great point. Mars transits tend to come in a couple of days early. So that weekend can be very intense. And Neptune rules oil. So this could literally be a war about oil. So we'll see how this shows up. But yeah, you made some excellent points. Be very mindful of your surroundings. I think we're in a time where there's just a lot of upheaval. People are crashing out left and right. I saw this insane road rage thing where these two men got into a fender bender and then are out in the street with traffic around them, fisticuffs, and then one guy stole the other guy's car. I mean, it was just like people are acting insane. Give them a wide berth. It's not a good time to say to get into. Don't start anything you're not ready to take to the mat, because people are really losing it. And with Aquarius energy, people can be mentally detached, not thinking about consequences, so in their ideals about what they think is right, wrong, and this and that, and ready to. Some people may be cruising for a bruising, so give them wide berth. Absolutely,
That's
absolutely.
such a wonderful point, and again, it gives me flavors of that special time in 1962 where you had a stellium of planets in Aquarius. So, for the positive end, you did have some progress in the 1960s, but it can have that flip side of volatility and violence as well. So, wonderful advice, Celeste. Absolutely take that on board, everyone. So, Celeste, as always, thank you so much for going through the first couple of weeks of the month. And next, we're going to go into each rising sign. Okay, into our Aries Rising friends. Celeste, your thoughts?
Yeah, so for Aries rising, this is a time where your career is in focus. This Capricorn cluster with is this all the personal planets, the Sun, Mercury, Mars, and Venus will all move through your 10th house of career, calling, and standing in 11th house. So really focus on your ambitions, your goals. What do you want to accomplish this year? Don't let this time go by without you putting some energy and effort. And you are someone who's a pioneer. What unique original ideas do you want to put into action? Now, be aware there can be some tension in this work sector as well. So just be prepared moving into the year with this energy. Yes. And Neptune, when it moves from Pisces it back into Aries, notice what's going on with yourself physically. For me, my boo is an Aries rising, and he started having allergies when Neptune went into Aries, and he never had before. So it was a big deal for him experiencing that shift. You may find yourself really enthusiastic or passionate about certain things, but you may also feel a little bit of a sense of physical weakness. There are very bad flus going around in Europe for sure, and potentially will be at this time in the United States. So whatever you can do to take care of your vitality and move with purpose and not exhaust yourself, I really recommend. And the full moon the sun will be in your 10th house, the moon will be in your 4th house. So there'll be like a need to balance work and home with this time. You may be thinking a lot about where you've come from, your family, 4th house, and ancestry, and where you're going to with the 10th house energy.
Wonderful point, Celeste. And I think for you, Aries Rising, your chart ruler is exalted, it's an angular house. So, depending on what else is going on in your chart, you might feel an extra sense of vitality. We've got a lot of these Capricorn planets in an angular house. Now, anytime a transiting planet goes through your whole sign angular house, they're usually some of the planets, the loudest planets in the sky. So, to Celeste's point, we've got the whole sign 10th house, it's highlighting your career. My key word for you this month would be to just take charge. Take charge in your career, take charge in where you want to go in life, especially with the preponderance of planets above the horizon. You know, you're going to be quite visible this month. So use that energy of your chart ruler. You know, if the positive end of this is you can put a great deal of energy into your public standing and career. The only shadow side of this might be, especially if you've got your midheaven floating up there in the 10th house, you may come into conflict with authority figures. That could be a boss that you might have to come into conflict with. But on the positive end, we also have Venus transiting through your whole sign 10th house, and that Venus is going to become Cazimi. Now, with Venus ruling your second house, if you've been thinking about asking for a raise or looking favorably upon in your career, this is probably a great month to do this, especially around that Cazimi time, to maybe ask for some more funds. And we also have that exalted Mars ruling the eighth house, so that might tie into shared resources as well. So that's the beginning of the month. As we get further on, we're going to have a stellium of those planets move into your whole sign 11th house. So this is going to be a great time, especially when Mars gets in there, to maybe put your energies into community groups. If you're involved in a local community or in a local group, this is a great time to be involved, to take charge. Your Aries Rising, that is Mars ruled. So especially when you've got Venus going through there as well and the Sun, it's really going to highlight those areas of community gatherings, friendship groups, but it's also maybe on a psychological point going to really invest in you about what your goals and ambitions are for 2026, not just for January, but for the whole year coming through. So take mind of that. You're going to be quite visible this month. And to Celeste's point, that Neptune is going to ingress into Aries, and it's going to be there for the whole 14 years. Especially if you've got early degrees of Aries rising, pay attention to that Neptune. To Celeste's point, one of the flip side or the shadow sides of this could maybe some health issues. Celeste, you're talking about your significant other and allergies he's never had before. So it could really manifest in those different ways. I think on a positive end with that Neptune coming through is you might find people find you a bit more alluring. It's Neptune. It can have this sense of being glamorous. So on the positive end, if you want to change up your appearance and be a bit more glamorous, you might be quite alluring to many people, and especially with that Venus ruling the seventh house as well. This may be a great time for a bit of a makeover, something of that nature.
Oh, I love that. Absolutely. Yeah, Neptune definitely glamorizes for sure. Be the mythic hero in your own life.
I love that. The mythic hero in your own life. Wonderful. Okay, into our Taurus rising friends. Celeste, your thoughts?
So, Taurus rising, this Capricorn cluster is moving to your ninth house of your philosophies and long distance travel. And I really think it's just about your belief systems. What do you know is true? You may find your feelings, your convictions being magnified with that opposition to Jupiter in your third house. With Neptune moving into Aries, what are you willing to fight for? What are you willing to battle over? What are your ideals? Is going to be a story that is really maybe coming up to your conscious attention at times as planets activate Neptune, that's moving from your 11th house into your 12th house. So Neptune in the 12th, just be aware of it because you may be feeling like you need to go on some kind of retreat that involves movement or activity, like a wilderness expedition or something like that. Could be something that you're thinking of planning for the summer or spring or a different time in the year, where you get a vacation that you move your body around. And then as these things move into Aquarius, it's going to activate your career sector, your 10th house. And as the Sun, Mercury, Mars, and Venus meet Pluto in your 10th house, you may feel like you want to conquer some new heights. You may feel really motivated to take on some more powerful roles in your career. If you work for yourself, really use the new moon in Capricorn to do structured planning about how you're going to make things happen. And if you work for someone else or a corporation, I would connect with your boss about what do you need to do to get to the next level for your career. So there's some big things going on with you during this time. And there's an amplification with the North Node in your 11th house. Groups, networking, like if you want to give more presentations, consider joining Kepler's Toastmasters Club or something like that. What skills are needed for you to get to the next step? Because Pluto is in your 10th house, transforming your career, empowering you, lifting, like giving you that intensity. Really pay attention when Mars meets Pluto. You might get some ahas about what actions you want to take next.
Wonderful advice, Celeste. And tying into what you're saying, I think for you, Taurus Rising, my key word for you this month is just expand your horizons. We've got the stellium of planets in the whole sign ninth house. Not only that, we have your chart ruler up there in the ninth, and eventually that Venus is going to become Cazimi. So I know in January, not many people go out and take vacations, but if you're planning a bit of a getaway and with a partner, maybe if you're planning a bit of a getaway, this would be a nice time to maybe go overseas or go on a pleasure cruise, something to get out of especially if you're living in a climate where it's cold and it's freezing. If you're wanting to expand your horizon, this is a great time to do it. Now, of course, not everyone is going to have the means to do this. So this just could be expanding your horizons to Celeste's point in higher education, whether this is in college or university, if you're looking to go back to school for some reason, whether to Celeste's point, you're looking to study more astrology, great time to get involved, especially with Mercury coming up there as well, in Toastmasters or joining an astrology class at Kepler. For example, this is a great time with all this ninth house energy to be pursuing those kind of goals. And to Celeste's points again, we're going to shift that stellium into your whole sign 10th house. So as we get deeper into the second half of January, all of these planets are going to become angular in the 10th house. Now, anytime planets transit in your angular houses, they're usually quite loud. So here we're going to be highlighting the area of career, public standing. The positive end of this is you can put a great deal of energy into this area of life. It might come on the shadow side of maybe a bit of conflict with bosses. That Pluto can be a flip coin. That Pluto is going to be there for the best part of 20 years. So this is not just a story for January, but for a very couple of decades. But to Celeste's point, it could be self-empowerment in what you're doing in your career, or you could be running up against powerful people. It just depends how that energy is going to manifest for you. And like always check out your own natal chart to see what other connections are happening. And yes, we're going to have that Neptune go into Aries for the best part of 14 years. Now, this can manifest in many different ways. On the positive end, if you've been looking, I know this is a 14-year story, but we could be talking about behind the scenes retreats. If you are spiritually minded, this could be a great time to start thinking about retreats behind the scenes or going with groups of people. As Celeste is saying, we have the North Node in the 11th house highlighting the area of community groups. So this could literally be going off with a community group to a nice retreat. And not just for January, it might be too cold for that where you are, but it's something to think about as Neptune spends a great deal of time for the next 14 years in your whole sign 12th house.
Love that.
Wonderful. Fantastic. Okay, into our Gemini Rising friends. Celeste, your thoughts?
So, Gemini risings, this is a big year for you, and the Capricorn cluster is in your 8th house. So, this is a great time to think about. I look at the 8th house as well. It's, the house of the shadows. It's a dark house. It's the things that we would rather not admit to ourselves. Take some time to really peel through the layers and excavate the shadows, because in April, Uranus is going back into your 1st house. This is like, there are big changes about your identity. You got to peek into this from July through September of 2025. What came to your conscious attention? What were you awakened to about how you present yourself in public, that you want to make some changes, that you've come to realize something different is about your identity? And this can be a great time to excavate that, think about it. Do you need to educate yourself in some ways with all that Capricorn cluster will move into becoming an Aquarius cluster in your ninth house of higher education? Have your philosophies changed? Yeah, where do you want to travel? These can be all kinds of things that you're thinking about. But I feel like, do you need to get any certifications or education if you want to be a full-time astrologer? What's next on your path? And how can you stay committed and focused? Because Gemini is mutable air in order to make your dreams come true during this time. And Neptune's moving into your 11th house of what groups really align with your belief systems. Can you, air communicates and connects and likes to get involved with things together. Think about, yeah, and maybe you'll be stepping up a little bit and taking on some leadership potentially in some kind of social group or a group that is related to social justice or some kind of making a stand about protecting your neighborhood or people or whatever. You could be becoming more and more of a revolutionary as this year goes on.
I absolutely love that, Celeste, especially about that Neptune picture on aligning with groups that align with your ideals. I absolutely love that. I think that's great advice. And that's going to be a 14-year picture for you, Gemini Rising. So going back to the points we were saying before, the first couple of weeks in January, yes, we're going to have these transiting planets going through your eighth house. The eighth house sometimes has a quality of a lack of control. It doesn't see the ascendant. It's, as to Celeste's point, it's a dark house. And sometimes at the beginning of this month, you might feel a bit out of control. It's on the side of the chart, which deals with other people. So this could be a lack of control in terms of maybe shared resources. Mars is in there. On the shadow side, there might be some conflict between your partner about what resources you're using up. But we do have Venus in there as well, so it is a benefic, so that might help ease some of that tension. But in general, it's just a house where you might feel a lack of control for the first couple of weeks in January. However, we're going to have those stellium of planets move into the whole sign ninth house. This is great if you're thinking about expanding your horizons. In January, yes, it's early in the winter, but if you're thinking about a quick getaway overseas, maybe a great time to do this, especially as the planets move through. Or it could just be expanding your horizons from home if you're going to take a class at Kepler. To Celeste's point, if you're studying astrology, it's a great time to put your energy into the area of life because you're going to have Mars, you're going to have the energy to push in that area of life. The sun is going to be highlighting that as we get into Aquarius season, and Venus as well. And what happens here is when we have those planets move into the whole sign ninth house, it's going to eventually make a nice connection with your ascendant. So especially as Venus eventually gets into Aquarius, watch out for that connection to your ascendant, and it might just be a nice day to go and pamper yourself and enjoy yourself for a day or two. And yeah, this is also bringing up the financial picture at the beginning of the year. Fortunately for you, you have the greater benefic. Yes, it's retrograde, but it's an exalted Jupiter going through the second house. So this is being part of a larger picture, which might, as that Jupiter eventually goes direct, not this month, it's not going to be for a while, but there might be some financial components here at the beginning of the month. And we also, to Celeste's point, have that Neptune coming into the whole sign 11th house. So I love Celeste's point about aligning yourself with groups who align with your belief systems. And with Neptune, the picture might not always be clear. You might get involved with a group, or you might have already been involved with a group where you're thinking to yourself, isn't quite working out. I'm not quite sure, where we're going, or what direction we're leading into. So you might have to dip out of certain friendship groups. That's just something that might come around this month.
Yeah, I love that.
Wonderful. Fantastic. Okay, Celeste, into our Cancer Rising friends. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, Cancer Rising, this is me. So you are starting the year with the seventh house highlighted. The seventh house is the house of the other. So whether it's your love partners, business partners, best friend type people, for some reason you will be focused on them, seeing them for how they really are with that opposition energy. And there may be some themes about what you want to commit to. What are you willing to commit to? Or are these relationships you have outgrown? So just be mindful. You may be making some big decisions around this time regarding your relationships. And then as the stellium moves into Aquarius, really shining a lot of light on your eighth house is your partner's second house. It's their house of income, resources, values. There can be a real spotlight on their values. So this is all here to help you really see what is behind the curtain and things you may have ignored or not wanted to see with the that dark house. Maybe you're talking about tax strategies, getting ahead of things. Eighth house rules taxes. Yeah, so that can be a great thing for you to be doing, aligning with your partners. Now, Neptune is going into your 10th house and Saturn will soon follow. This can be a time where you make your mark. You are looking magnified. You are going to be magnified in some ways in your career. This can be a make it or break it time. If you've been putting in the hard work for many years, this can be you reach the mountaintop. This is what I'm planning for myself. Yes, yes, yes. And yeah, you could really be inspirational to people. And yeah, are you ready to step up into more authentic leadership is what I am seeing. And Jupiter is in your first house. Now, this can be any efforts you put in can come back to you. Like really wholeheartedly. You might be really feeling very connected with your loved one and your partners. If you went wild over the holidays, Jupiter in your first house could be like, oh, my pants are so tight. Like this could be around like getting back to business with Capricorn season, about, reining some things in, getting more discipline. Absolutely could be what you are going, what's going on with you. Mm-hmm.
I love that, Celeste. Making your mark in the world, talking about that Neptune ingressing into Aries. And anytime a planet goes into an angular house, it's going to be loud. You're going to be visible. It's above the horizon. We've got a lot of planets here moving towards above the horizon. And I said this to Celeste before the recording, but I said Celeste should be on national television. We've got a spiritual leader. We're going to have Saturn going into Aries, so an authority in astrology as well. So I absolutely love that. So whatever happened is happening for you, Cancer Rising. Just think about those positive terms of the Neptune and the Saturn becoming angular. On the shadow side, yeah, it's a greater malefic. Eventually, when Saturn gets there, Neptune, on the shadow side, it just could be a time of a 14-year time of period where there might be some confusion in where you're heading. The positive end here is that if you know where you're going in life, this Neptune can be very, very positive and can be very glamorous for you, being highlighted in the public. But on the shadow side, if you're not quite sure where you're heading in life, it just might bring a bit of confusion. So like with any planets, there can be a positive and a shadow side. So just keep that in mind as time goes on. But for more immediate and faster moving planets, of course, we've got the 7th house highlighted with the Capricorn stellium for the first couple of weeks in January. So all of the keywords with the 7th house, there's going to be a lot of themes around the other. If the rising sign is about you, 7th house is about other people. So whether that's about your significant partners, it could just be one-on-one friendship relationships, business partners, all of these going to be highlighted for the first couple of weeks of January. And yes, we've got a mixed bag here. We've got an exalted Mars. So on the positive end, this could bring more energy into this area of life, but it can also sometimes bring a bit of conflict. So just be mindful about that. But we do have the benefic going through the 7th house, which will become Cazimi of the sun, highlighting that area. So this might be a great day or two to go out with your partner, and with a Venus in Capricorn, maybe something a bit more sophisticated, a nice fancy meal somewhere at a restaurant if you have the means to do so. Because as we go from our stellium in Capricorn in the seventh house, we're going to shift to our whole sign, eighth house, and to Celeste's point. This can bring up areas of shared resources with Mars going through there. On the shadow side, it could mean a bit of conflict if you're thinking about getting your taxes done early, about what should be put in, what should be put out, just sorting out all those different pieces that are out of your control. Because with the eighth house, it's when we're talking about taxes, it's what you owe to other people. So it might just be a little negotiation on that part. But by and large, I really love this exalted Jupiter. Yes, it's retrograde right now, but it's been going through your whole sign first house. So you do you, you're bold, you got big ideas, and you just do you, Cancer Rising. Wonderful. Okay, into our Leo Rising friends. Celeste, your thoughts?
Okay, Leo, like every Capricorn season, your sixth house is in focus. Sixth house is the things that go wrong with your health. So, what are you doing in terms of preventative health? This is your routines and your rituals, also small pets. And I really, really understand why pets are in the sixth house after my little sweet Debo passed away. Around Saturn went direct and he had cancer, and within the next couple of days I had to say goodbye to him. And I no longer have to walk him every day, and I really have all this space in my schedule that I really didn't think about. How, as much as we love them, they are, there are obligations and duties and routines associated that we have to get done with them. So I just went on a wild tangent, but I really wanted to point out for you, Leo, that this is a time to really hit the ground running with taking care of your health. Coming up with what are you going to do to improve your health if you need to, because in July 26th, the South Node is going to go into Leo, into your first house. On August 12th, there will be a solar eclipse in your first house. So I would look at the beginning of the year, and this is the starting line to do preparation so that you can have the best experience possible, because the South Node is a drain. So there can be a drain on your vitality if you're not careful. So, and this, yeah, you're preparing to be in the spotlight even more than you already are. So let's hit the ground running. And then as that Capricorn cluster moves into the seventh house, your relationships are going to be in focus. And really, Leo rising, there is a real need to be appreciated and valued by your partners. Pluto's in your seventh house. You may actually be, Mars-Pluto may be cutting off relationships that are no longer serving you. So that can be a big story. And with that Capricorn cluster in your sixth house is your partner's 12th house. So you can be seeing some themes of behind the curtain about their self-undoing, their secrets could be coming to light, and all kinds of stuff. Pay attention. But, or you can think about, recommitting could be something that happens with relationships that are very positive for you. And Neptune's going to be moving into your ninth house, really bringing focus into your belief systems, what lights you up, what you're passionate about, what inspires you. Do you want to add in some divinatory tools into your daily routines? Could be something that you can be thinking about, like pulling a tarot card or an oracle card every morning to help clear the fog about how you want to move forward. And Jupiter going through your 12th house can be a wonderful time to quit any habits or routines that are impacting your health. Yeah, Jupiter's there to support you, saying goodbye to escapist tendencies or self undoing. Saturn
Absolutely.
and Saturn and Pisces, if you need to quit a substance, great time to do it with that Capricorn new moon.
Absolutely great advice, Celeste. And I agree with you. For you, Leo Rising, it's hitting the ground running. Obviously, we've got this very packed Capricorn stellium in the sixth house. So, of course, the themes of work, routines, and health. And on that point of health, to Celeste's point, if you've been dragging your feet a little bit in terms of maybe a diet that's not quite working out. I know it's quite cliche to talk about new year, new you, but particularly for Leo Rising, I think this is very much the case for you with all these planets in the sixth. So think about with that nice exalted Mars, think about maybe a new exercise regime if you've not been moving very much. You're going to have Venus come through there as well. And on the flip side, there might just be a lot of work going on. It might just be a new year where the work is piling up. I think what's going to help here is that Venus is going to become Cazimi and it rules the 10th house of career. So that might be helpful. It's a work house along with the career house. So I think if you put all that work and effort in, which Cardinal Earth will do, then you should end up getting the rewards and your just rewards for all of that hard work. But I certainly would say keep an eye out for your health, routines. If you need to change things up, this is a great time to do it. Now, I feel like I've been saying this forever, but I bet Leo Risings can't wait for that Saturn and Neptune to get out of the eighth house. So whether that's been a financial picture with both the South Node going through the second house as well, this is going to be a time where it might be, yes, it's a greater benefic, a greater malefic, and Neptune can be iffy at times, but for me, it's going to be a lot better going through the ninth whole sign ninth house as it eventually makes a connection with your ascendant more so than being in the eighth house. Now, for example, when Saturn's not going to get there just yet, but when Saturn eventually gets into the whole sign ninth house, if you've been, say, studying astrology, this is going to be a great period over 2.5 years where you can, if you're at Kepler, go for your diploma and really solidify and crystallize your learning in astrology and become an authority in it to a certain degree. Neptune is going to help on the positive side, being tying into your belief systems, higher philosophies. But again, if you're involved in astrology, this could be a great time to do that. So yeah, I think it's going to be very beneficial for you as we get those two planets and get them to get out of the eighth house eventually into the whole sign ninth house. And Celeste, I really like your point. Yes, we have an exalted Jupiter. It's in your 12th house. So there are times of just being mindful of anything that's self-undoing, and that could be tied to that. Jupiter rules the 8th house, so there may be some issues there. So just be mindful of that. But really for you, Leo Rising, again, to Celeste's point, time to hit the ground running, get the work done, and when you get the work done, you should get your rewards at the end of it.
I love that.
Wonderful. Okay, into our Virgo Rising friends. Celeste, your thoughts?
Yeah, Virgo rising. This last year has been so important for you as the South Node has been going through your first house, digging up things about your identity, your vitality, and what has come to your conscious attention. This is a great time with this Capricorn cluster in your fifth house to really think about what gives you joy now. How has it changed? Can you release some of your need to be of service to everyone else or perfectionism and think about what you really want? If you're single, ready to mingle, think about what you really want in a love partner, or who do you really want to date? I would go through and make a list. You know how to be specific, so be specific to what you want, what you're willing to give, what you want back for your efforts as well. This is a great time to move into more agency and authority for yourself and taking action with your goals and what you want to do. What risks are you willing to take to get what you want? How can you be more creative? Have more fun in your life. Absolutely. Like your fun may be working, but is the work you're doing of value to you? Does it really light you up? Because Uranus will be going into your 10th house again. It already dipped in last year from July to September, but this can be a time where you're making changes in your career, where there's can be awakenings about what you really want to do, or there could be changes outside of your control. But just be thinking about these things. What really lights you up is what I would say. And Jupiter in your 11th house. Networking in groups can be a great thing to do. So when you're ready to make some shifts, depending on what degree your midheaven is, if it's there, it could be years from now before you're making changes. But I love the idea of you being more involved with, especially like astrology organizations. I want to shout out OPA, the Organization of Professional Astrology. Full disclosure, I'm a board member, but it's an amazing astrology organization. There's several others. Are you going to not Norwalk? Are you going to, you can go to Norwalk, but also UAC. The biggest astrology conference of the year is in September in Chicago. Are you going? This is a great opportunity for you to network, make connections, especially if you're an astrologer. Your star could be rising by how you move through this time. And then that Capricorn cluster will go through your 6th house. I see this about your routines and rituals, about how you approach your work life. Can you find more balance and more enjoyment in what you are doing as you expand your networks? And Neptune going into your 8th house, that'll be an interesting transit for you. I'll let you talk about that one, Caleb. I want to see how that shows up.
I love your points here, Celeste, especially when you were talking about if anybody as a Virgo rising is interested in going to UAC, because September is going to be Virgo season. So it's right your time to shine. So if you want to be involved with astrology organizations, OPA, such a wonderful and important organization for the astrology community. I absolutely love that. I love your point as well about if you're Virgo rising and you're single and ready to mingle, to Celeste's point, we've got so much going on in the 5th house. And your chart ruler is going to be moving through there as well. So if you are looking to go on dates, we're going to have that Venus Cazimi up there. So this is going to be a nice time. We're going to have Mars. So there might be some sexual pleasure. If you want to sow some wild oats or have some fun, this is a great time. But if you are in a committed relationship, this might be a time, if you've got children, where you're spending a lot of time being creative with your children and doing a lot of projects. So this is a really nice time, especially with all the earth energy in that stellium for the beginning of January. It's all making nice connections to your whole sign 1st and 9th house, if you've got any planets in there as well. So I love what Celeste is saying, but switching on now to Neptune, which is going to be going into your whole sign 8th house for the best part of 14 years. What I'm feeling here is that if you do end up finding a partner, maybe with Saturn going through the 7th house, if you have been single, maybe there's been some delay or some block on being with a partner. Now, on the flip side, that could be a committed partnership as well. But if it hasn't been, maybe with that Saturn and Neptune finally moving out of the 7th house and you go on dates and you find somebody, this is a great time for partnerships. But with that Neptune, what I would maybe caution about is if you do find a significant other, I just might be more mindful of what their finances are like. Because with Neptune, there can be some illusion there if Saturn's going eventually through the 8th house as well. So if you are out dating and you get with a partner, I'll just be, as time moves on, maybe question maybe some of the finances, especially if you get more together and you start merging your finances together and the shared resources. I think that's going to be my caution of that Neptune for being in Aries for so long, for the best part of 14 years. Yeah, that Neptune is going to be interesting. It's a 14-year picture in the whole sign 8th house. It's going to bring up the themes of anything with the 8th house is usually a lack of control. If we're talking about debts, you can't control that. You have to owe the government what you owe them. I'll just be mindful over these next couple of years that, which Virgo risings you usually do, is just make sure you have all your ducks in a row and that you're not being, what would the word be? Not covering your tracks or being a bit deceptive in terms of finances, because I think that Neptune is going to be an issue if that happens in the next couple of years. That's kind of the flavor I'm getting. I don't know about you, Celeste, with that picture.
Yeah, I like that. Yes,
Absolutely.
absolutely.
Wonderful. Okay, into our Libra rising friends. Celeste, your thoughts?
Yes, Libra rising. This Capricorn cluster is in your fourth house. So you start the year with a focus on home, family, ancestry, foundations, maybe getting the ducks in a row in these areas of your life. And Venus will, which is your chart ruler, will square your ascendant at some point. And what comes to your conscious attention about how I get that there may need to be some conversations with if you have a spouse or a significant others you live with or roommates about how you can separate out chores is something that may be coming to up to your conscious attention at early on in the year, or maybe doing some adjustments to your home environment to make it more comfortable and pleasurable, especially as this cluster moves into your fifth house. So, of bringing the sun through your fifth house, a trine, smooth, easy flowing energy to your ascendant. You may notice yourself feeling better, looking better. What brings you pleasure? Making sure that you are doing so. This is the house of children as well, the fifth house. So there may be some themes as you're moving from the fourth and fifth house that you're dealing with your children are your focus right around this time. Your children, home life, pleasure, fun, all of this kind of stuff. And there will be a big spotlight on your partnerships as Neptune moves into the seventh house. This can be a time where there can be some of the Libra risings are going to be falling in love again with their partners, but there also could be disillusionment if you could come together and said, we're going to do X, Y, and Z to delineate the chores, delineate responsibilities, and then the other person doesn't live up to their bargain, and you being a Libra rising are so focused on partnerships, yeah, just be aware that some of this stuff may be going on, and it's better to address and talk about it early so that when Uranus goes through your ninth house, you're not in divorce court. This is not where you want to be potentially. But Jupiter in your 10th house, maybe you need a mentor. Maybe you get lifted up some surprisingly in your career. So working on your foundations can bring growth in your career sector. So really enjoy through June. There's real focus, real amplification. What you put in at work can bring success multiple fold, but watch out for just like doing too much. I think you need to do what you're doing with intention.
Wonderful point, Celeste. And you're really speaking to me as a Libra rising. So I'm feeling everything you're saying right here. And I think for us Libra risings, you've probably heard me say this month after month after month, but finally Neptune is getting out of the sixth house. Goodbye. I am done with Neptune here. I think with Saturn now stationed to go direct, it's not going to quite make it this month into the whole sign seventh house, but I can't wait for these planets to get out of the sixth. Now, if you've been doing your work, Saturn, which I've been doing, is trying to readjust my health regime. I'm trying to work on my diet. We're not all perfect. I've been trying to work on that. Some of us might be having been dealt with health issues with these two planets here, especially with Neptune. You might have an ailment that you can't quite put your finger on or isn't quite working out with medications or whatever you're doing. So I'm looking forward to this Neptune saying goodbye, and we'll never see this again for us Libra Rising. But yes, it's going to bring us another issue to bring up, which Celeste is saying is our whole sign seventh house. And here we're talking about partnerships. This could be significant others, but it also can be about business partners. So this can manifest in many different ways. This is going to be a 14-year picture. As Celeste is saying, some of us might fall in and out of love. there might be some illusion here in terms of if you are free and single, just be mindful of the people you bring into your life. If you're out there in the dating field, the person might not be quite what they seem. You might have rose-tinted glasses to a certain degree, or if you are in a committed relationship, as that Saturn comes through again, it might just be another recommitting vows, things of this nature. So as we know with the planets, they can go one way or another, but this is going to be a larger theme. And I'm quite happy for those planets to go away and to be, yes, it's going to be allowed in an angular house, but I'm ready for a different conversation with this Neptune and Saturn. But for the immediate future, the beginning, the first 2 weeks of January, we have our fourth house highlighted. There's going to be a stellium of Capricorn planets here. So a preponderance of our planets are below the horizon. So we're probably going to be doing a lot around the home. You know, we've got the Venus, the Sun, the Mars there exalted. We've got the Mercury going to be coming in there as well. So it's after holiday season. We might be picking up after ourselves. We might have some projects at home on the go. So with Mars there, it might be a good time to shore up the castle, things of this nature. On the shadow side, we might have a bit of conflict with partners, especially with Mars ruling the seventh house if we're in long-term relationships. So be mindful of that. But on the positive side, we do have our chart ruler becoming Cazimi in an angular house in the fourth house. So this might be just a pleasurable time to do things that you enjoy at home. Now, as we get deeper into the month, we're going to have this shift of planet into Aquarius, and to Celeste's point, all of those planets are going to make nice connections with our ascendant. So if we've been putting in a lot of work into our home life with other people, as we get to the latter half of January, we might be able to enjoy ourselves, maybe take a day out, go and pamper ourselves, things of this nature. We're going to have a nice connection to our ascendant. And lastly, yes, we have that wonderfully exalted Jupiter retrograde right now. Eventually in the next few months, it'll turn direct. So this is highlighting maybe the abundance in career. On the positive end, it's the greater benefic. So we might be well seen upon in career. We might have more opportunities in the realms of our careers. And this is just an area we have to look out for as well. So that's us for Libra Rising. Good luck to everyone out there. Ready for that Neptune and Saturn to go away.
Yeah, well, I hope you really enjoy it and have some fun when stuff is going through your fifth house.
Have some fun. That's a great keyword for it. Exactly. Okay, into our Scorpio Rising friends. Celeste, your thoughts?
Yeah, so Scorpio rising, this Capricorn cluster is in your third house. I really want you to be mindful about your thought processes. If you find yourself being really pessimistic, how can you focus in on the joy of life, the simple pleasures, anything? Because the third house is the house of the mind, and and if you're a Scorpio rising, you're someone who holds on to emotions potentially. And so just keep that in mind. Now, Mars, your chart ruler, is exalted. So can you use your mind to think of what mountains you want to climb, what goals you want to accomplish? Start the year focused, strategic. Yeah, this can be a great time for you to be thinking about those sort of things. Depending what degree your ascendant is, Pluto is squaring. So especially early Pluto, early Scorpio risings, you've been feeling this intensity about wanting to potentially make some changes. You may feel a lot of pressure in your home life or your parents if they're getting older. There can be concerns about them and their autonomy. So just be aware that these are the themes that you can be moving into the year with. You may be needing to communicate with your siblings about mom and dad. And can you communicate with and collaborate and watch out for getting into conflicts, especially when Mercury and Mars come together in your third house? That can be things popping off with your siblings or your neighbors, or, around in your people close to you? Do you need to do anything to take care of your car? Does it need an oil change or any other kind of work? Be proactive is what I would suggest about this time. And then when all of this stuff moves into your fourth angular house with Pluto there, there can be some intensity. But yeah, you may feel like, oh, maybe you can get something technological at home to make life easier for yourself. Yeah. I just thought of an easy bake oven. I don't know if that's going to really help you, but yeah, maybe you can put your kids to work in terms of them fixing up the meals and things like that. Neptune's moving into your sixth house, which can bring just be mindful about any sensitivities, allergies, or things that can bring up some like little unexpected things around your daily routines and things. You may decide that certain things need to be washed away in order for you to live your best life. Yeah, Jupiter going through your ninth house. Can you keep in mind the bigger picture when you're talking to your siblings, your family? And how can you bring more closeness and connection, and not just Capricorn energy can kind of pull you away from the emotions of things. So just keep that in mind. What is your real philosophy, the higher purpose of what you're doing when you're talking about whatever needs to go on with mom and dad or what have you.
Yeah, wonderful advice, Celeste. And I think picking up on your key word there, really like for Scorpio Rising, the key word of being proactive. As you're saying, your chart ruler is exalted at the beginning of this month, and we really are in the realms of communication here. So not only we've got this exalted Mars, it's ruling the sixth house, and expect a lot of communication here, whether it's emails or whatever you're doing with work. I would say this is a great time to advocate for yourself. So if you are in work and there's a lot piling up, just be proactive. And if there's something been going on in the back of your mind that you think needs to be said or needs to be sorted, Scorpio risings aren't always the most upfront or flamboyant or in people's faces type of people, but they often spend a lot of time in their own mind, and sometimes they don't always speak up. But I think it's important for you Scorpio risings to do that, because whatever ideas you have in mind are in a positive end probably going to end up well. So if you need to tell a supervisor or to tell people in your work group that something needs to be changed or to be done, I would certainly speak up and get things done that you want to get done, as opposed to taking everything from everybody else. And here we do have a preponderance of planets are below the horizon. So this is still quite a private time. We've got a lot of these planets moving through. Yes, communication is going to be a big deal. Maybe a lot of journeys in your local community, a lot of doing different errands around the beginning of this month. But then as we get into the second half of January, we're going to be highlighting your whole sign fourth house. So this could be a mixed bag. We've got Mars going through there. Mars is going to hit its conjunction to Pluto. Just be mindful. Celeste said this about before at the beginning of the recording. If there's any leaks or if there's any issues with the home, certainly get those done and repaired as soon as possible, especially with Mars and Pluto. These are quite volatile planets. So if you've got any issues going on at the home, make sure they get fixed. And eventually we're going to have Venus and the Sun come through there as well. So there's going to be a lot of activity with the home life. Just on the shadow side, just be mindful of any things that you need to get sorted. I do love an exalted Jupiter. It's above the horizon. We're in the whole sign ninth house. So again, it brings up the topics of philosophy. If you're involved in astrology, this is a wonderful time to keep expanding, keep going down different rabbit holes, maybe different branches of astrology, if that's what you're interested in. And, this Jupiter, depending on what your ascendant degree is, it has been making nice connections with your ascendant. So if you're involved in higher education in some way, certainly expand your horizons, get yourself out there, put yourself out there to a certain degree. Yes, we're going to have that Neptune get out of your whole sign fifth house into the sixth. this is going to be a larger picture of over 14 years. It's going to bring up, there could be many themes that come here. It could be to do with health, it could be to do with work routines, anything like that. So just be mindful if Neptune has given you a preview of what is to come. And then eventually you have that Saturn that'll move out into the whole sign 6th house as well. But yeah, overall for you, Scorpio Rising, I would say certainly to Celeste's point, be proactive. If you've got something that you need to say it. And you always, for the most part, work hard. So just keep on trucking for you, Scorpio Rising.
Excellent.
Okay, into our Sagittarius Rising friends. Celeste, your thoughts?
Yeah, Sagittarius rising, this Capricorn stack up is in your second house of your resources, your talents, your income. So, this is a great time to think strategically about your budget. Now, Sagittarius sometimes likes to go big or go home, so you can think about what really matters. Get like a plan about how you're going to utilize your resources so that you don't run into some issues. And if there's changes going on with your job, lots of people are dealing with that. This can be a time to be really focused on that. Jupiter is going through your 8th house. Be mindful. Jupiter is an amplifier. 8th house rules taxes, debts, shared assets. Yeah, so there could be some themes of you needing to start the year right with some financial planning. And then as that cluster moves into your 3rd house of the mind, siblings, yeah, this could be a time to think about networking. Think about using lists and things to keep yourself on track. Sagittarius is what I would be recommending for you. And Neptune is going into your 5th house. This can be, you may be really inspired to be more creative, and you may need to be more creative in terms of your money management and things like that, as well as making sure, well, you're a Sagittarius. If you're not having joy is not part of your regular existence, this is the time to relight that inspirational fire of joy for yourself. Absolutely. And Uranus is going to be coming up to your descendant. So if you're single, ready to mingle, this is also, maybe you're getting out there dating, and that's by the time Uranus goes into Gemini, you're ready for a new love, a new commitment to come into play. Could be something that's going on. Yeah, communicate clearly with your needs and your desires so that you can avoid any disruptions in the relationships that are important to you, would be what I would be focusing on. And with the South Node going through your 10th house, you may be making some job changes.
Wonderful point, Celeste. And I love the point you made. Out of all of the rising signs, I prefer this Neptune going into the whole sign 5th house. Eventually, yes, it's a 14-year period, but to Celeste's point, this can be a wonderfully creative time over a decade. If you're involved in media or anything to do with the creative world, this is on the positive end of this Neptune, is a wonderfully creative, artistic planet that you can tap into, and eventually it will, depending on what your ascendant degree is, make a nice trine to your ascendant, so it can bring in some glamour, creativity. I think that's a wonderful positive side of that Neptune. Now, yes, have a look at your own natal chart and make sure, maybe have some squares or oppositions with that Neptune, but by and large, out of all the rising signs, I do like this Neptune for the 14 years going through the Sagittarius rising whole sign 5th house. For the immediate future, there's a hell of a lot going on in your whole sign 2nd house. We're going to have that Capricorn stellium there. This can manifest many different ways. It just means there's a lot of energy going through there now. So we're going to have the topics of finances, possessions, maybe on a more psychological level, it's what you value. And here we've got the Venus is going to make its cazimi in the 2nd house whole sign. So maybe there's a bit of a bump in income whatever you're doing, whatever creative roles you might be in. Maybe there's a bit of bump in income here. Mars is exalted, even though it's the greater, lesser malefic. You know, there may be a little bit of conflict, but on the positive side, that Mars just might be a lot more energy pushed into bumping up your incomes and your finances at this moment in time. To Celeste's point, yes, we do have a retrograde Jupiter. It's exalted, going through the whole sign 8th house. So there might be, as Celeste said, amplifications of 8th house themes like taxes. So keep that in mind as you go through the beginning of the year. But on the positive end, you might just be talking about maybe a partner over the past year or so has got a big raise in their income. So that is helping out financially. Of course, this can manifest in many different ways. What else did I miss? And yeah, as we get later into the month, we're going to have that stellium of planets move into your whole sign 3rd house. Just a lot of communication here, whether that's work in your work communications, maybe a lot of emails are piling up, or you're having a lot of correspondence with other people. And it could be a lot more errands around your local environment. You could be dealing with siblings. That's just something to keep in mind as we get deeper into January. But by and large, we've got a preponderance of planets below the horizon. So you might be doing work in the social realm, but there's a lot going on that you need to work out in your private realm as well as you go through the January of beginning of this year. Wonderful. Okay, into our Capricorn Rising friends. Celeste, your thoughts?
This is your season, Capricorn. The stellium is in your 1st house. What do you want to accomplish? How do you want to be seen by others? Having Venus Cazimi and Mars Cazimi in your 1st house. Maybe you want a makeover, hit the gym. I really like this potentially for you. This can be absolutely wonderful. But be mindful of just be mindful of your vitality also during this time, because especially when Mercury goes Cazimi, because it rules your 6th house, keeping yourself healthy. There's lots of flus and things coming out, but I think this can be a great year for you if you stay focused. Your chart ruler is going into the sign of its fall, which means, there may be like feelings of struggle to really get to what you get done. You're going to have to be more disciplined than ever. But with Saturn and Neptune coming together now, this means you really got to pay attention to your vitality. But it can also be, how are you going to make some of your, I like Saturn and Neptune for making dreams come true as well. So you can think about that. And it's going to be in your 4th house, Saturn and Neptune going through your 4th house. So you could be focused on your elders, your parents or grandparents for some reason, and they're, ask them to do like the grandparents books or so that, if you don't have children already and want them, that you have this record of the legacy of your ancestors to pass along through, is what I'm getting for this time. So think about that. The stellium moves into your 2nd house. Are you making big moves with your money that you want to accomplish some goals around? Yeah, this can be a big thing that you are thinking about. North Node in the 3rd house. Is there reasons you and your siblings are having to come together, have conversations, be more compassionate towards each other? Yeah. The big themes of this year, you may be really focused on yourself, your vitality, your values, your finances right out of the gate.
Wonderful point, Celeste. And bringing up that picture of vitality, I would ask my Capricorn Rising friends, do you feel in the last couple of weeks that sense of vitality? You've got your exalted chart ruler, Mars, going through the whole sign 1st house. We've got the Sun, Venus coming through there. Mercury's going to come through as well. So maybe you've had that burst of energy and you're ready to kick ass for the beginning of 2026 and to get going. And I think this is a great time for all things considered. Of course, look at your own natal chart for other connections. But by and large, are you feeling more of that vitality and that more raring to go, especially with that Mars? The only shadow side with the Mars is if it's coming over your ascendant, just be careful with sharp objects in the kitchen. That Mars can be quite cutting, so that's just something to watch out for. But by and large, you should be raring to go. I do love that you're going to have that Venus Cazimi in your first house, and especially if it's hovering around your ascendant, go and enjoy yourself. You know, if life has been cumbersome for a time, especially with that Saturn retrograde for so long, go and enjoy yourself, pamper yourself for the day, enjoy that Venus, have a good time. That might tie into partners. We've got an exalted Jupiter going through the, yes, retrograde, but it's going through the whole sign 7th house. You know, go and enjoy a pampered day with your partner if you have the means to. I think this would be a wonderful time to do that at the beginning of January. And yes, we do have the bigger picture of Neptune going to your whole sign 4th house for the best part of 14 years. Now, this can manifest in many different ways. On the positive end of Neptune, this can be a glamorous, creative time, especially if around the home. So if you've got any projects on the go, this could be a time to just really mix it up a bit with this Neptune quality. The shadow side of this is that if your home life isn't overly stable, Neptune can bring in a bit of disillusionment or illusion in terms of, it might be a sense over the next couple of years of like, where do I live? Where do I belong? That could be some of the questions that you might have to answer with that Neptune, especially being in an angular house, and in a very important angular house in your 4th house is going to be some of the questions you might have to answer. And to Celeste's point, we're going to have the chart ruler move back into the angular 4th house in its fall. So the shadow side of that may be some restrictions, some disillusionment with Neptune there as well about the home life. You know, on the positive end of this, you know, Saturn is the planet of if we work hard, we get the rewards. So over time, over a 2.5-year period, if you really put down your solid foundations, you're going to get the reward with Saturn. If you, of course, Capricorn, all the Capricorn risings I know work really, really hard. So I know if they put the effort in, you'll get the just rewards at the end of the day. But in the more immediate future, we go from a Capricorn stellium into the whole sign 2nd house. Here we're going to be highlighting the themes of finances, possessions. So it might just be a case of, you know, what am I working towards? Is it paying enough for me at this moment in time? Just some of those questions you might have to ask yourself as you go into the beginning of 2026 for you as we go in. Wonderful. Okay, into our Aquarius rising friends. Celeste, your thoughts?
So Aquarius rising, we start the year with this big stellium in your 12th house, which encourages retreat, encourages tackling self-undoing. So you may feel just a little bit like you're, I think maybe being in more planning mode than action mode as we start the year may be best for you, because, you know, Pluto's in your 1st house. So it's remodeling everything about you in a lot of ways where things are falling away that are no longer serving you. Sometimes this can be a little uncomfortable, but that's what Pluto does. It burns away everything down to the studs in order to be rebuilt. So you may be focused on, you know, how are you rebuilding and how do you want to be seen and what are you going to focus on? Yeah, a lot of behind the scenes stuff as you move into the year. And then when the stellium moves into your 1st house, this is when you have the new start in Aquarius season related to your vitality, your identity, and things. So maybe you want like a gentle exercise as you move into the year, like yoga, Pilates, gyrokinesis, this sort of thing. Neptune is going into your 3rd house. So this can be a time to imagine life beyond previous conceived notions. Yeah. So think about what's going on then. I'll make sure you're double check. Are you thinking clearly as you move into that? Can you be like, sometimes Aquarius risings can come up with doing things at strange times. So you may become aware of that, or your partner or your boss or somebody may, Sally, in the middle of the meeting is not the best time to X, Y, and Z. So just be mindful about some of those things, and you could just have a chuckle with it because you're from the future. You kind of beat to your own drum, and yeah, you just may be made conscious of some of these sorts of things. Jupiter is going through your sixth house. So, what are you doing to enhance your health? That can be some of the things, your routines and rituals that are more, maybe some spiritual and embodied things can be really helpful for you as you move through this time.
Wonderful point, Celeste. And I agree with you. There's a lot going on here behind the scenes for you, Aquarius Rising. Not quite your season yet until we get deeper into the month. So if you're looking for getting away for a wintry retreat behind the scenes, I can just imagine taking off to a cabin somewhere in the woods, just disconnecting for a while. Because being behind the scenes, sometimes if life has been a bit cumbersome or a lot of hard work, just taking a time to disconnect from society and just really to mellow out until it becomes your season again and that you're highlighted. Because to Celeste's point, sometimes what can happen, especially with Mars, yes, it's exalted, but it's going through the whole sign 12th house. It's also ruling the 10th and the 3rd house. So what I would be careful with here is that anyone undermining you, maybe at work, it could be to do with, people talking behind your back or taking actions behind your back that undermined you in some way. So just be careful of that, what might come around. Of course, that's not going to be for everyone. That's just a possible manifestation with Mars in the whole sign 12th house. But as we get deeper into the month, we're going to have these planets go into its stellium in your whole sign 1st house. So what I do love here is that Venus is eventually going to make its way through, especially if you've got early degrees of Aquarius risings. Go and enjoy yourself. Have a spa day. Treat yourself, pamper yourself where Venus comes around into your 1st house. The sun is going to be highlighting you as well. Just be careful with that Mars, especially if you're at early degrees of Aquarius rising. As we know with Mars, it can be quite cutting, so just be careful with any sharp implements around the home if you're cooking things. Just being mindful of simple things like that. We know that Pluto is going to be a huge story for the next 20 years. This Pluto can manifest in many different ways. It could be a sense of self-empowerment, but on the shadow side, it could also be quite destructive. So just be mindful of that. That's going to be a long-term picture, just as the Neptune, as it moves into Aries, is going to be a long-term picture for the best part of 14 years. Now, for you, Aquarius Rising, I'm not too concerned about that Neptune. It eventually is going to make a sextile to your ascendant. It's one of those rising signs that it's a cadent house. It's not one of the ingresses that I'm particularly worried about for Aquarius Rising, but it can manifest in many different ways. It could just be in terms of creativity around your local environment. There might be something going on with siblings. Just all those 3rd house themes that might come around is something to pay attention to you. And of course, now your chart ruler is direct. You might be thinking to yourself, you can't wait for Saturn and Neptune to get out of the 2nd house. So whether you've been having some financial themes come up, maybe some financial difficulties, with Saturn and Neptune moving out of the way, this should clear up that financial picture. Yes, we've still got the nodes in the North Node in the 2nd house, South Node in the 8th, but it's going to probably clear up some of that financial picture if that's something you've been going through. But other than that, just keep trucking along as you always do, Aquarius Rising. And to Celeste's point, you do you. Be unique. Wonderful. Okay, last but certainly not least, into our Pisces Rising friends. Celeste, your thoughts?
Yeah, so Pisces, the North Node is in your 1st house. So the North Node is an amplifier. So it's a great time to take some stock. And how has this been going for you? Are you rising up in terms of your visibility in your career or groups or what have you? Yeah, your chart ruler is in the sign of its exaltation. So have you been lifted up? It's retrograde right now. But I think I'd love for you reflecting back on 2025 as we're moving into 2026. It's in your fifth house. Have you had a child? Do you have new grandchildren or something like that? Yeah. Have you had a lot of fun during the year? Or have you been emotionally just really emotional or worried or things like that? But whatever the case, this Capricorn stellium is in your 11th house of hopes and dreams. So this is a great time to get serious, get down to business, really make a plan to make this year even better than last year. Or if last year was crap, how can you make this year a good one? And Jan Spiller, who's an amazing astrologer, talks about how the 11th house, when you have a new moon here, it's the granddaddy power period where you are supposed to just put out your new moon wishes. It's a lucky time, your hopes and dreams. What do you want to manifest? And you may be surprised about what it comes to you by just ask, believe, receive. Yes, yes. And then really do some planning to get to ground running during Aquarius season, where all that stellium moves into your 12th house. There may be some time where you can take some time for a retreat. And if you need to tackle any self-undoing or escapist tendencies, Pisces Rising, that could be the time to deal with some of those things. Yes, yes. Now, Neptune is moving into your second house. So that can be a time where you think about, are there income streams, like especially if you work for yourself, what do you want to wash away? What lights you up? What inspires you to really to pursue your to pursue? Now, Saturn and Neptune are going to be coming into your second house. So you may want to think proactively about how you can plan your finances going forward into the year, because there at some point you may feel like the pennies are a little pinched. So just be aware of that. Approach it with, let's try to approach it, if possible, with courage rather than fear, because this is a time, it's a first house year. People are going to be like transforming their careers, to making changes, making adjustments, and especially if you're a spiritual entrepreneur, you could be like having some really big expansion and abundance coming to you if you work forward with intention, potentially.
I absolutely love that, Celeste, and you've got my ideas flowing, because I was thinking the same things in terms of finances and career. Now, I've said this a lot. We have a wonderfully exalted Jupiter in the whole sign fifth house, but right now it's retrograde and it's ruling the 10th house. So to Celeste's point, maybe you're thinking about career, or maybe there's a change, or maybe there's something you have to revise and review, because that's going to tie into this long Neptune story that's going to be in the whole sign second house for the best part of 14 years. And Saturn is going to come there eventually as well, and Spain, about 2.5 years in there as well. So there's going to be some adjustment here. And I like your keyword of being proactive, that if you are in the realm of the creative realm, maybe you're an astrologer, and you're looking to be an entrepreneur, this is a time where you really got to sit down, reflect, think about the practical realities in terms of finances, but also really what you want to achieve in life. Like, just go for it. We've got this exalted Jupiter. Eventually, it's going to go direct in the next couple of months back through your fifth house. So you have something of that creative energy in mind. I would say just go for it. You only live once. Just crack on with it and just go for it. Yes, the financial picture might be a bit confusing for a while. It might be up and down. There might be some delays and restrictions. But I would certainly say, to Celeste's point, is just go for it. You only live once, and crack on with it. And this is reinforced by the beginning of this month with the stellium of the faster moving planets in the whole sign 11th house. So if you're involved with community groups, friendship gatherings, maybe you're an astrologer involved in community groups, we're going to have this wonderfully Kazimied Venus in the whole sign 11th. So this is going to be a time where you can shine among groups. Certainly a great time with Mercury above the horizon to start anything that has to do with communicating in the public of some way. I would certainly recommend that as well. But yeah, for the most part, I think for you, Pisces rising, it's a bit of a mixed bag. We've got a lot of planets below the horizon and we've got quite a few above. So this is a time where you might be balancing work life with what's going on in your private life. This might be a theme. And as we get deeper into January, a lot of these planets are going to go into your whole sign 12th house. So it might be time just to relax, just to retreat, maybe disconnect before eventually your season comes up in the next month. So that's, yep, our advice for Pisces rising. Wonderful. Fantastic. Well, Celeste, as always, thank you so much. I'm just going to stop the screen share. Thank you so much, Celeste. As always, I love hearing your brilliant insights, and you inspire my mind because you just say things that spark ideas, and I'm like, wow, such a great point. So, Celeste, what's coming up for you? What's going on in your world? Where can people find you, and all of that?
Yeah, so I'm Celeste of Astrology by Celeste. So you can find me at astrologybyceleste.com. My podcast is the Celestial Insights Podcast that helps you surf the energies of the energies of the week like a boss. I kind of write the pre-news to help you see how things are going to come up in the collective as well as in your personal life. So come for an astrology consultation. I love to work with people one-on-one. You can get one or you can get packages. And I expect to be teaching transits again this spring. I don't know the exact date, but that will be something to keep an eye out on. I'm going to be speaking at UAC in the fall. And find me here on YouTube and Instagram are my main platforms. And I've been putting more energy into my YouTube channel, hopefully to grow it. So please like, subscribe, and follow on Astrology by Celeste YouTube and comment.
I love that. And you know what I need to do, Celeste, is combine our YouTube channels, Kepler and yours. I'll do that when I publish this. It's the first
Yes,
time doing it.
add me as a collaborator so it'll go on my channel.
Perfect. Okay, I'll do that as well. Wonderful. Well, Celeste, thank you so much for everybody watching. You can find all of Celeste's socials in both the description and comment boxes. Celeste is a wonderful tutor at Kepler College, and she'll be doing her very popular transits class. And I will say, when that pops up on our website, it sells like hotcakes. So when you see that come up on our website, certainly sign up as soon as possible. And of course, if you go into UAC, you'll be seeing Celeste talk there. So absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much as always. And I will see you again in, where's it going to be? March, April? What were we?
Yeah,
I've
we'll
lost
be
it.
doing the Aries season. That's going to be a big one. Yes.
Oh, that's going to be huge, especially for the United States as well. So we'll get into that. Wonderful.
Okay. Looking
Thank you.
forward to it. Thank you so much, Callum. Your insights are always get me thinking too, and I love your brilliance as well. So always
Wonderful.
enjoy these connections.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you all for watching, and we'll see you again next time. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye.